Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you listen to this episode 235 of the Tree Talk podcast. Myself, Jack Neville, and Matt O'Callaghan of the Wicklow Observer and Vale Star. It was an incredible weekend, Matt, between the weather and the match we had on that special day in the two Scala Crowns. I didn't think we'd be looking forward to a Munster final, but that's the position we find ourselves in. We have a bit of more to talk about. We have a special guest coming on early. We have ladies football, Camogie and Masters to touch on towards the end, so stay tuned for all that and more.
The impression the game you get out with what you put into it. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
Delighted to be joined by former Limerick hurler Paul Browne this morning. Paul, how are you keeping?
Good lads, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
Not to bother. I suppose
Good, Paul, how are you?
When Matt got in touch with you last Wednesday or Thursday, did you think to be a Munster final to look forward to?
I thought Matt would be asking me questions about why maybe we were finished third, or we might have maybe even worse case scenario, you know. But no, geez, it's great to be looking forward to the 2 weeks. There's a buzz already around the place. You can feel it, you know, especially when it's Clare you're facing. So that rivalry is well and truly alive. I think it's probably the biggest or most anticipated one in the GA at the moment. So it's great to have another cut at it.
Yeah, I suppose for anyone that was in a bubble over the weekend, Limerick beat Cork, and one of the best games I've ever been to. And Waterford got the job done over Tipperary and Thurles, which means it's Limerick and Clare, as you mentioned, in the Munster final again. But the day itself, Paul, and Munster hurling, you just couldn't write scripts like this.
No, look, it's I'm definitely not going to get into a Munster, Leinster thing or anything like that, or hurling really, you know. It's just hurling in general is great, right? And we need to appreciate it. I just don't think we fully appreciate how special the Munster Championship is. Everyone says it, but like to really take a step back, even other games, I was lucky enough to get down to Cork and Tip this year to have a look at it, you know, as well. And like an incredible game, just the atmosphere, the occasion, there's people flooding in from everywhere, and there are different counties and cars and roads full and stuff like that coming in. It's really, really special thing we have. And look, long may it continue. I think as long as Munster hurling is driving it anyway, the provincial discussion is not really up for much discussion, I would say, you know, especially from a hurling point of view. It's just an incredible thing to be involved in, be it as a supporter or lucky enough for myself to be a player and playing in it. Like, it was just incredible, you know, really, really special times.
Yeah, and I suppose you're a player, and it's not too long since we saw you out there, and you would have played with a lot of those players. Did you anticipate that performance coming?
Look, it's in them. They're just like the character of these fellas is the most impressive thing I think about them. You know, there's never a moment too big, or there's never they never fade away from the challenge. To be honest with you, like it was just a matter of who was going to drive it on Sunday gone, as opposed to was it going to happen. Like, you know, and I just very impressed with like Dan Morrissey and Dara O'Donovan. Like Dara. The on about William, I don't know who've been underrated, you know, and stuff like that. But Dara, I think, is one of the most underrated hurlers we've ever produced. Like, it just doesn't seem like he gets the credit he deserves most of the time. Like, he is just, he can do it either way. Like, he's tough, he's physical, and he can hurl the lights out as well, you know. And I was delighted to see him having a couple of pops from long range and firing the ball over the bar, you know, the other day as well. Like, it's just a real bow. He has the strength, he has his bow as well. Like, so. Like those players were always going to stand up. Burnsy's been immense, you know, for the last number of years as well. Always the man for the big occasion. It's just great to see the lads driving on. And then we had a couple of flashes from other lads coming back again. 𝘕𝘰𝘬𝘪𝘰𝘮, superb second half, you know, really stood up to it when it was needed. Tom Morrissey, as usual, brilliant, you know. And Aaron again got the right supply and delivery and really went to town in Cork.
Yeah, and, you know, I just go back to midfielders for a minute, because that's obviously the position you excelled in. And you know, Dara would have been young coming into the panel when you were there, and eventually takes over from you, and Will comes in. then. But they're a brilliant mix of players, and they definitely do go under the radar. As you said, William probably gets a bit more credit, but I don't think either of them is rated as they should be in terms of the national landscape, because there is no better duo, and I don't think anyone really gets close to the two of them.
Yeah, no, they don't. Very rarely. Like, I think even at times there, they might get turned over for a couple of minutes, like, in a game, and next thing all of a sudden the talk is all the Limerick midfield weren't firing or whatever like that. But I'm yet to see a group get a bit better of them for 70 minutes, and even if they break even or whatever, like the next time they play, the boys have their homework done, and they definitely won't be breaking even the second day in a row, if they get to play the same team. So they're a great duo. William is just what a workhorse in the middle of the field. Like, he's just a pleasure to have in your team. Like, he's a fella you'd love to have in your team. You'd take him anywhere with you if it was a transfer market, but to come up against him is a nightmare, and just like, he'd be chasing you down there, and you just hear his breath and his footsteps coming first, like, and then you're going to get swallowed up by two huge arms. Like, he's a massive man. And just, I suppose if I was to say, like, the thing about William especially is that even when the game is going against Limerick, he's always there. He's always there about fighting and trying to pull him back into it, And I suppose even when there's a lull or a dull period in the game for Limerick, William is always the fellow who's kind of thereabouts in the rucks and tackles and trying to make something happen or trying to spark it into life, And I suppose from looking at the game the weekend gone, I think Cork probably go into that lull period, and maybe if they had a William O'Donoghue, I think they would be dragged out of those quicker, I think they're probably missing a player like him, and if they had maybe one of him, I'd say they might be even a different team,
Yeah, I think the thing with William is any sort of highlights clip, he's always in the background, either on the ball or, just out of shot. Like, he's everywhere. And then Dara, as you said, with the 3 points, so important. But I suppose outside that, in the middle 8, you mentioned Burnsy and Kyle was brilliant, and so was Declan. And then the half forward line, that's really been the central point for Limerick. And it has been a bit off some players this year, but that middle 8 really thundered into the game and were a telling difference in the end.
Yeah, I think teams have come with different stuff as well, Jack. They've withdrawn players, they've withdrawn a full forward line out into the middle 8 as well, like, to try and combat and have extra men there, And I suppose sometimes I think, some teams drop their half back line and don't engage, but we've seen teams now pushing their half back line and engaging the half forwards a bit closer as well, And I suppose coming with that, then I suppose probably the ball speed and the ball to hand was probably a small bit off for a couple of games, but that seems to have come better now, or has definitely improved. So I think all those things kind of factor into it. But that middle 8, teams obviously have targeted it as an area they're going to have to go at Limerick if they want to win the game. So I mean, every time that middle 8 go out in the field, like, they're facing a team who has targeted, focused on them, and worked in that area as regards how they're going to break them down and stop them. And you can't be at 100% all the time. So even a small bit off, it looks like they're miles off, but that's not the case. The margins at this level are absolutely minute. And what you're noticing more and more about hurling now is that they're turning on such fine moments in a game, like we block down or a hook or a missed tackle or a fumble, stuff like that. And I think games are switching on those now because teams are so quick to punish you on the break and on the counter. Especially when the ball is turned around the middle third, like, you can see teams have been working on, like, turnover, how fast can we get the ball into our full forward line and maybe work a goal, and Limerick did that very well the other day, got 3, could have had more, but it was by a really quick ball into the lads in the transition phase,
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned goals there because, in the grand scheme of things, it was 28 scores, 31 in Cork's favour, but Limerick got the goals, as you said, and Limerick probably been guilty of shooting from further out and just racking up a high tally of points, but it's good that, in a day in the cauldron, the Gaelic grounds, that they were able to just actually turn some of them chances into goals. Now, they did butcher a couple of them, but to score 3 goals and 25 points in any game, we should be good enough, yeah.
Yeah, it should. And look, I'm you win by a point, everything is okay. You lose by a point, it's the end of the world, I mean, Cork were very close to winning that game the other day. 130, if you told them before the game, scored 130, they'd have thought they'd have won the game and gone home. And if you told Limerick before the game that they conceded 130, they'd probably have said they might have lost the game as well, So, look, they got the goals, they got the breaks, they could have had 7, easily, as you said, they missed a few, but, I just think that probably in the last couple of weeks there, they've had the chance to work on, I suppose, what we mentioned there, the fact that they've been engaged in the middle third, and you often saw that the ball was flying over the top of that middle third from the half back line, and it was going straight into Seamus and Aaron inside by the D on their own, like, you know. I mean, the amount of times Cork got caught 2-on-2 inside was scary, like, and Kieran Joyce tried his best to get back there at times, but I think he was just kind of caught in the mind of coming out onto the half forward line as well, like, you know.
I think that's the thing about this Limerick side when they are pouring, that if you do go man on man and you leave those boys inside in their own, that they'll cause damage. But if you drop off, if the likes of Hago and Tom Morrissey and them are on form, they'll just shoot from everywhere. It's just, if Limerick play to their best, they're extremely hard to stop.
They are. Look, if Limerick hit top form, look, you can't see anyone turn them over, you know. I suppose Clare, obviously, the next day will think that they have the upper hand, you know, and I suppose they're going to probably think that they have found maybe a way of combating them, you know, in the middle third, and maybe getting the better or the upper hand in certain areas or certain positions. But look, I think Limerick have an improvement to make from the first day they played Clare, you know, the number of wides and even some sloppy play in general. I think that's definitely improved. Ball handling, the ball speed has definitely come up a ton, you know. So I think fellas are back in form as well, and a bit of confidence. And look, no better way to get your confidence back than 40,000+ in the Gaelic grounds, the height of the summer, the heat beating down, and you've come out on top. And saw the great piece from Dennis Walsh there in the Times about the lads sitting down in a circle after they get 2 hours after the match, eating their dinner and in the chairs in the Gaelic grounds. Like, I mean, that's the, like, whatever about the matches, that's the stuff you'd live for as a player. Like, you know, that moment there where you've given everything you can as a panel, as a group, and you're sitting down having a chat, having the crack, and you've won a Munster Championship game. You're looking forward into the summer, into the All-Ireland series, you know. That's the stuff you give your arm to be involved in. Like,
yeah, they looked like a really tight-knit squad, and that the manner of the win and to get over the line after so much scrutiny should give the side huge confidence, and a reminder for everyone else that, you know, it's not too long ago that we had called them a team they're going to win All-Ireland with ease, and they have won 3 in a row. That they're a dangerous animal to rile up like that, and they proved on Sunday just how good they are again.
Yeah, I don't think you win any All-Ireland with ease, though, you know. And like, even over the past couple of years, we were lucky in some games as well, and did get the breaks or got the goals, you know. I just think it's just constantly coming out on top in games is a real skill as well, like, you know. And being thereabouts in the melting pot and knowing how to finish out a game, or knowing what's needed to, where the puck out needs to go, where the bodies need to be for the break, you know, where to get to, you know, to hurl close together as opposed to hurling far apart, and making sure we've numbers there for, even if we do lose a break or a puck out, that we can stop it at source, like, you know, and stuff like that. And they have all that stuff down to fine art at this stage with experience, you know. But look, the games are very close. It's hard to know from here, like, regardless of Munster final results, it's hard to know what to expect for the All-Ireland series, you know. I don't think we've got a great read on Leinster yet or anything like that, and I think it's like the Leinster final might tell you a small bit more, but neither Galway nor Kilkenny have been shooting the lights out either, like, you know. So it's really hard to know what's happening from that side of things, but I think the lads will just be, as Tom Morrissey said today, you know, they were playing to get into the All-Ireland series, and I suppose everything else worked out as a huge bonus then.
Yeah, Matt, I'll throw it over to you there.
Yeah, Paul, just reflecting on it since it happened, and the number of times before and the lead into the Munster Championship that John Kiley stressed how important or how competitive this year's Munster Championship was going to be. And like, to think that had Cork got a late equaliser, how different the Munster landscape would have looked at this stage. You'd have Cork in the Munster final, and you'd have Tipperary out of the championship. Very, very few would have thought about that.
Yeah, look, as I said, in the games, in championships as a whole, like, you know, like, it's minute, small details, like, and small moments are deciding all these games and all these championships, and you see the score difference between teams is very little between them, like, you know. And like, I like, Cork are out now in 4th place, but have they had a bad Munster campaign? I don't think they have. Like, we could be very easily reading Limerick's results as Cork's results are, like, at the moment, you know, a point here, a point there, a draw, like, you know. So I think Cork will be happy enough with what they've done this year. Obviously bitterly disappointed, I'd say, to be out of the championship, but I think they'll be happy enough with what they've progressed and some of the players they've introduced. And I think probably next year we'll see even more young players coming through from their underage system and their 20s and stuff in the past number of years into their panel and getting game time. They brought on a couple of lads today, Brian Hayes and Paddy Power came on, you know, so they're all big pluses, like, and Mark Coleman to come back as well. So it's like I said, when you win by a point, life is great, and when you lose by a point, it's the end of the world. But like, it's the same for Cork now. They've come fourth and barely got knocked out. Could be in a Munster final by a puck of the ball. Like, so has it been a poor year from them? No. Will they be disappointed to be out? They will. And I suppose equally, Tip will probably be counting their blessings, you know, that they managed to get over the line in third place. But I suppose when they reflect on it, they might be happy enough with where they are and kind of work away there quietly over the next couple of weeks, perhaps, you know, and face the first task in Offaly, I think, and in 3 weeks' time. But after that, then you'd never know what way that goes. They might be happy enough with where they've ended up.
Yeah, I suppose in comparison with last year when they failed to win a match, that it's a big improvement for Tipperary. But you just wonder when you see the competitiveness of the Munster Championship this year, and it's probably one of the most competitive Munster Championships we've seen. And like the three counties that came out of Leinster, you could say they ambled through the Leinster Championship to date. And you'd wonder, going into the All-Ireland series, will the Munster Championship have taken too much out of the Munster teams going forward?
Well, to be honest, if I'm honest with you, Matt, I think the team who probably loses the Munster final could be in a bit of bother, you know. On the next day, they would really want to be on the money, have done their recovery right, I suppose, physically and mentally. I suppose after that, going into that quarter final, because they will be set up for the fall. You know, they've had 6 weeks there of really intense hurling. You know, probably huge relief to be either third or in the Munster, or to come out as first or second and into a Munster final, and then I suppose, depending on the result of that, you could have to pick yourself right back up again and face into a team who probably has had a couple of games to fine-tune themselves and maybe look at it a different way, like, you know. So I think the Munster finalists could be a bit of a bother this year. I'd say the team who wins the Munster final will be delighted with the break into a semi-final, as opposed to other years where maybe we were talking about the 5 and 6 week break being a huge hindrance to the provincial winners, like in Munster. I think that they'll be delighted with the break and really happy to be in a semi-final and watching the rest of it play out.
Paul, I suppose from a Clare perspective, going into the Munster final, all of last week, they would have been of the mindset that it was a Tipperary Clare Munster final. I suppose the last ones they wanted to see knocked out against them on Munster final day was Limerick.
Yeah, I don't know. Would it be that? I don't know. Is that the angle, maybe, Matt? You know, they probably were expecting maybe if they met Limerick again, it might be way down the line, you know. But I just think probably the last week they were probably preparing for Tip. Probably had been looking at the Tip game on Sunday, you know, maybe tuned into that more so than Cork and Limerick in the Gaelic grounds. And then I suppose as the day went on, they were probably having to change over from their Twitter feed to the television feed, probably, and keep an eye on what was happening, like, you know. So I think from a mental perspective, I think regardless of who it is, I think knowing or being like 99% certain they're playing one team and having to switch in the space of a couple of hours to facing a different team is a tough task, you know. They probably would have started maybe like doing some analysis on Tip even, you know, and maybe would have been really keenly watching the Tip and Waterford game from a backroom team point of view and stuff. And the players even would have probably been keeping an eye on that. And some players won't, some players will, some players are probably at the beach or something, you know, or going for a swim on Sunday and watching none of the matches. But I think regardless of how good you are at switching off, you probably would have been thinking that it was Tip and focused in on that for the Munster final. And it probably is a difficult position to be in, to switch it around in the space of a couple of days and know you're facing Limerick again. Probably have to revisit their game in the Gaelic grounds and look at that and what worked well and what they can improve on, and maybe look at Limerick's shot count, which was high even though they had wides. You know, the shot count for Limerick was really high that day, and had they hit over some of those wides, it would have improved. So I suppose it is a difficult mental task, I think, to switch from where they were to where they have to be now in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, Limerick in this particular campaign, I suppose they started off not very impressively, but they've shown demonstrable improvement from game to game, Paul, and there was a big step up last Sunday. There's no doubt about that, not just because we won. Is there far more to go, Dick?
I definitely think there is. Like, there's definitely some areas, even from last Sunday there's definitely some areas of improvement. Like, you know, Cork seemed to get an awful lot of puck outs off short, and I suppose short to the full back line, which, okay, is to be expected and might be a tactic or a ploy, like, but I think also got an awful lot of puck outs to the middle third, to runners, to the midfielders, to the half back line, you know, as well, which is probably something they won't be too happy about. Also on top of that, I think the Cork movement did trouble us a small bit, and I think they'll be looking at maybe how to shore up defensively a small bit more. Like, you know, they definitely won't be happy with conceding 130. That'll be a stick to beat them with over the next couple of weeks, I'm sure. But there definitely is improvement, you know, and even there was still, like, I suppose it does come with the weather now, you know, with that heat and I suppose that intensity in that game, like, you're going to have mistakes. But they probably would have liked to cut out maybe a percentage of those mistakes even more and make it probably a small bit more slicker looking, and ball to hand and stuff like that, you know. But I think when the weather is like that, when you're playing 20-something degrees of heat and you're playing intercounty hurling, like, there's going to be mistakes because fellas tire at different times, you know, and it's a real stressful environment for the body. So, you know, things happen at different moments, and I think there's always going to be mistakes, but it's just limiting those, I suppose. Look, it could very easily be the same weather in 2 weeks' time inside the Gaelic grounds again, like.
Yeah, Paul, we couldn't have this conversation with a Bruff man without mentioning your club mate, Sean Finn. Do you think that the Limerick full back line has settled over the last 2 games in his absence? Because, like, you know, in my opinion, we're talking about the best defender in Ireland missing out from Limerick. So, are you happy with the way the thing has settled since he you know, got injured?
Yeah, look, I mean, they've drawn a game and won a game, Matt, like, you know. I suppose, not like when you're talking about defending, I don't think it's defending as in conceding scores. I think it's what Sean brings to the group as regards just solidity and I suppose confidence in defence, you know, and communication. Like, you know, that's something that probably has to be replaced more so in his actual on-field presence, like, as regards playing, you know, and getting on the ball. Like, I mean, I'm sure Nicky is missing him as a cornerback and someone to converse with. Like, you know, I'm sure the half back line are missing his communication out the field, you know, and as well as his colleagues in the full back line, you know. It's a difficult task for Mike Casey to be in, like, because he probably would have been used to playing full back over the last number of years and now having to go into the corner, like, you know, and definitely probably, you know, I wouldn't say, like, he's come off in the 2 games, but I don't think he's playing poorly. I think it's probably because he's covering more distance or ground than he has been used to as a full back, like, if I was to say that. And Richie has done excellently well coming in, and I would say that, you know, Richie, Dan, Mike and Barry are probably going to be rotating as regards positions over the next number of games and in and out, like, you know, and probably being replaced by one or the other of the players at some stage of the game, like. So I just think it's a matter of replacing Sean, kind of a bit like Moneyball, you know. How can we replace Sean Finn, and I suppose what does he give us? And I'm sure Sean O'Donnell has all that done, to be honest with you, but what does Shawnee give us and what players do we need to replace him on the field, like, you know. He's a massive loss to Limerick, to be honest with you. As you said, Matt, I fully agree with you there. He's the best defender in the country and has been over the last 6 or 7 years, like, you know. He's just superb. Nothing phases him. He's a real cool, calm, collected presence inside there the whole time. Huge loss to Limerick, huge loss to my own club, Bruff. But, like, I'm sure Shawnee is contributing in with Limerick as much as he possibly can. They definitely would have found a role for him to fill, which I'm sure he's taken on with both hands, you know, and he'll definitely do the same for ourselves and Bruff as the year moves on as well.
Paul, turning more to your own career, which has been stellar by any benchmark, both with county and with Bruff. Happy days with Limerick, eventually getting the All-Ireland medal you richly deserved?
Yeah, sure. Look, I mean, when I started out as a young fella, if you told me what would be on the mantelpiece when I finished, sure, you'd be delighted. But to me, Matt, the journey was the most important or most valuable memories I have, to be honest with you. I mean, being part of the team in 2013 that kind of maybe finally stemmed the tide as regards silverware, like, you know, was massive for us, and I think massive for the county as well, because the underage had started to come good as well at that time, you know. So those players like Wayne Mack, Gavin, Paddy, 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴 𝘰𝘰𝘪𝘢𝘵, David Breen, Steve Walsh, you know, Richie, Tom, all these fellas that were involved in that. I have very, very fond memories of playing with all those lads, and I suppose what they did, and there was a real change of I suppose we went into the era of professionalism back then, you know, as regards to GA and I suppose the attitude and stuff, and Jim and S&C and all those boys were real standard bearers and really drove on the standards. And I think if you were to ask the young lads that, I suppose the likes of, you know, the likes of Richie, Dara, these lads that came into the panel around 15, 16 as well, like, they would have told you that those lads were really driving the standards as regards behaviour and trainings and how you looked after yourself and all like that. And I think that mindset was there before the lads got there, in a sense. And obviously the boys that come from the academy side of things then, which has started all that work as well at underage, really drove on from there. Like, but look, a lot of those lads that maybe that maybe didn't end up being part of 2018 were real driving factors as regards to how Limerick was moving on from there. I mean, 13 and 14 we had really good years. Look, 15 and 16, yeah, they weren't great, but I think that we were going through a huge transition phase at that stage. A lot of older players were starting to slip away and retire, and I suppose all those young fellas then had started to come through, but all those lads that were there before that were real driving factors as to where we've ended up today, you know, and they all helped turn the cogs in the wheel at some point, you know.
Standout memories, obviously winning the All-Ireland was a highlight, but the other memories, obviously 2013 was a big one.
Yeah, 2013 was a big one. Obviously your first year in 2009 was playing in those games and making your debut and stuff was lovely, you know. A real standout game for me, strange, I don't know why, but like the game actually in 2011, the league final, the 1B final in Ennis, is actually a game that really stands out in my mind as regards a game I really enjoyed. We got over the line that night, you know, and it was just an incredible atmosphere. That's a game that really stands out to me in my mind the whole time. And to be honest with you, Matt, other than that, I think the 2018 league, the day above in Galway and Salt Hill, is one that really, really stands out to me. Just a real sense of just satisfaction and knowing that, you know, things were going to be okay. We got out of 1B. You know, I was heading towards the end of my career, I would say, you know, like I was heading towards my 30s, like at that stage, and knowing that you're out of 1B and what was coming behind were just such quality, like, and that you were going to be in 1A and you were going to be definitely having a cut off the Munster and All-Ireland that year in the round robin, like, and that's a real standout memory for me. Just a real sense of satisfaction of having got out of 1B and into 1A finally, like, and I know that things have changed since then now and it's a different system, but I think winning that game and having that monkey off the back was a massive thing as well.
Talk to us about Bruff, Paul. Very, very near in 2022, very close in the county final against the team that ultimately went on to win the Munster and All-Ireland series.
Yeah, Matt, look, I suppose overall, I suppose clubs are funny things, you know, they come in waves, really. Like, we were having a conversation last Tuesday night above the field. We had 34 or 35 players training above in Bruff. Now, I said to Ray Horrigan, our manager, I said, lock the gate and don't let him out till October, right? But it's just a funny thing that, like, I had a conversation then with Jason Hayes, and he said to me, do you remember the day we played championship above in Camogie and we had 17 players on the field or on the panel? In senior championship now at that time, when we had John Anthony Moore was a sub keeper and Mike Weeks was a sub as an outfield player. So, like, it's just great to have such numbers coming through in the last number of years. The work that's going on in the club at the moment is really, really positive to see. We're headed by Mike Kiley there, our chairman, and he's doing a great job. And, like, Matt, just small things like, I suppose we've a lady there, Clare Moran, driving the facility side of stuff, like, and the work she's doing and how well the field looks, how well all the facilities look, how clean everything is, like, you know. They've put an amount of money into our old dressing rooms there in Bruff. They've knocked the wall and made it into a gym for the players now in the last number of weeks, you know, and spent a couple of €1,000 on that for the club, like, and it's just a real focal point of the community now at the moment, which is positive to see. There's kids up there every evening inside the Astro, the field, you know, and playing sports, whatever it is, soccer, football, hurling, you know. I suppose last year was disappointing, not maybe to get over the line in the final, but I don't think we'd have any complaints. I think the better team beat us on the day. And we were a small bit off and they were rightly on the money on the day. And I think that it's just great to see the 19s winning last year, the juniors winning, and just a real positive energy around the club. And I suppose especially just numbers at the field for training and loads of young fellas there for training, like, and just interested in the club, not only interested in playing, but actually interested in being a part of the club and pushing it on from off the field as well, like, you know.
Yeah. The under-19 final was one of the great finals of last year, Paul.
Yeah, it was very enjoyable game. Yeah, it was a really enjoyable game. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it, yeah. Just great bunch of lads. Yeah, just a great bunch of lads, to be honest with you. Really well coached and managed, and just a bit of bite about them as well, like bit of physicality and bite about them, and well able for the hard stuff as well as the hurling, like, you know. And just great to see that kind of crew coming along now to backbone the club for the number of years to come, you know. And probably maybe the best crew to come out since my own group came through in 2007 or so as minors and stuff. So it's really good to see 8 or 9 or 10 lads there that you know are going to hurl away with the club for the number of years, like.
Roger Mulqueen would kill me if I didn't mention to you about the junior bees.
Yeah, sure. Look, it's I suppose it's an important part of any club is to have a junior team going well and have an outlet for every player to be able to play. They've done a good job this year. They've moved up to junior A, and I think they're going to try and enter a junior B team as well. So, like, to have 3 adult teams in the club will be an incredible achievement. How it'll go, I don't know, Matt. You know, like on paper, the players are there, but like it's a different scenario getting lads to the field and stuff like that. But you know, they're going to try it, which is just another, I suppose, insight into, I suppose, the mentality of the club at the moment, and I suppose what the executive is bringing to it, and I suppose driving standards, you know. And it'd be remiss of me now not to mention the underage as well, led by Fran Dwyer and Mike Weeks and you know, a couple more there, Nicola Mulcahy and Jason Hayes and stuff, for driving things there in the club as well from that point of view. And just the underage has great numbers, very well organised, and trainings and stuff like that, and matches and everything, and just it's good to see at the moment, you know. The school going well today. They're in a final against Kilmallock there in a couple of minutes above in the field in Bruff, like, so. You know, things are moving forward nicely around the place. Look, whether it'll eventually lead to silverware or anything like that, I think is secondary as to how the club is actually running. And I suppose people have been happy and it being a nice focal point to the community, you know.
That's it from me. Thanks very much, Paul.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Paul. There, and it's great to see a club like Bruff doing so much work, good work underage, and you're reaping the rewards of it. And it's brilliant, obviously, to talk Limerick with you, and long may the success continue. But Paul, thanks very much for your time. We'll leave you with that. I hope you enjoy the rest of the summer, and it'll be a long, fruitful one for Limerick and Bruff. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, man, for having me. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Paul.
No, Matt, Paul Browne, former Limerick hurler. It just struck me there that he was talking about William O'Donoghue and Dara Donovan being underrated. But for, I suppose, anyone that didn't see Paul play, and I was young at the time myself, but as good as the boys, if not better, you know, just Limerick weren't winning as much. That's why you wouldn't get the recognition.
Well, coming from a person like Paul Browne that has given so much and continues to give so much to our association and to Limerick, you know, that's a ringing endorsement, because he would have seen him at first hand, and that there's very few people that would know as much about midfield play as Paul Browne. Like, he, you know, I saw him in the county final, I think it was in 2007 or 2008. The Bruff beat Caherline in Ballygran in the intermediate final, the county intermediate final. I think it was possibly 2008. And, you know, on that day, a very, very young Paul Browne put on a day for the ages that I will never forget. And came away from Ballygran saying, you know, we have Limerick have an to the end if there was ever one. And, like, events that transpired since prove that. And he's had a wonderful career. Unfortunately, a pity towards the end of his inter-county career that was blighted by injury. But certainly by any benchmark, on and off the field, Paul Browne's contribution to Limerick GA is enormous.
Oh, 100%. And continues with that way with Bruff, who so close last year in the Premier Intermediate final. But going back to Sunday, Matt, and I said it to Paul, did you have any thoughts going into the game that there would be potentially a Munster final to look forward to, or were you relatively confident that Tipperary get the job done?
I was, everybody else, Jack, you know, pretty certain that Tipperary would get the job done, and that we were going in, you know, we were taking on Cork for third place. And I was of the mindset, and I don't think I was too far wrong, that if Limerick turned up a better performance on the day, they'd win. If they didn't, they'd be in trouble. No, they improved on the performance of the previous game sufficient to get over Cork. But as Paul agreed there are further notches to go, Jack. And I have a sense that in terms of performance, the trajectory is upwards, and it will stay that way, because the picture is now becoming very, very clear, you know, as to what the pathway to ultimate glory is. It is the championship has been down now to 6 in the race for the Lee McCarthy Cup, plus Carlow and Offaly. 8 counties. Like, you big names fallen. Cork and Waterford are out of the race. Wexford are out of the race. So it's all to play for now. And the doubters, and I suppose we were all guilty of elements of doubt within ourselves. I think to a degree, to a fair degree, Limerick have answered the doubters last week, and all the shenanigans that was going on there, about this and the other thing about Limerick being unbeatable and all this sort of thing, and Limerick's disciplinary issues, and you know, all that sort of nonsense. But Limerick's discipline on Sunday was exemplary, I thought, in the white heat and the cauldron of a battle. When that title was, when that All-Ireland title, as we thought, was on the line. But as events transpired, it was both their titles were on the line. So they're both still alive. Limerick have room to improve. But they're going very, very much in the right direction, Jack. And that, you know, once again, you'd have to say that the indications are that John Kiely and Paul Kirk and their management team have absolutely, possibly timed their run to perfection. Now, spare a thought for Cork, Jack. We've got to spare a thought for Cork. Because, like, we had a tremendous game of hurling last Sunday, and it takes to produce that. And Cork more than played their part. And as I said there at the outset, you know, had they got an equaliser, Cork would be looking forward to a Munster final. It was that close. And but to a certain degree, I suppose the odds were stacked against them to some degree. Like, they came out of Páirc Uí Chaoimh having played the first 2 championship games there with 3 points. And they had a tricky trip to Ennis, which it proved to be, lost by a point and didn't go to Limerick to the All-Ireland Champions. It wasn't a very palatable finish over the last 2 games. But I don't think in 2023, in terms of progress, I don't think Cork have lost anything but in the defeats to both Clare and Limerick. I think they have shown measurable improvement as a squad, as a team. Now, they still have issues in the team. There is no doubt about that. But there will be options down the road, because, like, on Sunday they play Offaly in the All-Ireland Under-20 final, and they'll be seeking a third Under-20 title in 4 years. So you'd have to say that there's a huge reservoir of talent out there to be tapped. And you have the like of Mark Coleman and Alan Connolly to come back into the squad. And above all, I think the biggest loss of all to Cork in the last 2 games was Robbie O'Flynn, who is a player I would rate very, very highly. But you have to say well done to Cork. They may be out of the Munster Championship, but to say that they had a bad Munster Championship is wrong. In terms of putting the building bricks in place, Jack, they've had a good Munster Championship.
Yeah, I think I see some people going along saying there could be a 4-place playoff for Wexford and Cork. I don't think that's fair, and I think Cork are out because they deserve to be out, because they had 4 games and it just wasn't enough. But as you said, I don't think it was a bad Munster Championship. I also think Cork were the best team Limerick played, because I think Limerick played to near enough to their best on Sunday and only got over the line by a point. I think if Limerick played like they did on Sunday against Tipperary and Clare, they would have beat them also. So I think Limerick will be glad to see the back of Cork. But I also think they'll be really happy to have Clare again, you know, in a Munster final, because Clare, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't make much of an odds because they're both in a Munster final. But Clare ended a 17-game unbeaten streak for Limerick, and they won't care about, you know, a streak. They'll want titles, and they proved that. But the chance for John Kiely and Paul Kinnerk to prepare for Clare again, I think, is one that they're going to relish.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And Dale Parson analyse and forensically examine the shortcomings that occurred in the previous game with Clare. And of course, the talk about Clare at the moment is that Conor Cleary will be missing, which will be a huge loss to Clare if it transpires that way, and will probably involve maybe a bit of a shuffling of the defence, which isn't the best going into a Munster final. At least we've got a couple of games to get accustomed to the loss of Sean Finn. So I think John Kiely and his management team will absolutely will relish this. And players, the rivalry that's between Limerick and Clare, players will absolutely relish the chance of avenging that defeat and putting one over on them. And I'd say, talk of 5 in a row, Jack, that will not exist for the next fortnight. It will not come into the conversation. It will be all focused on the game. Clare, beat Clare, and see where it takes us.
Yeah, it's going to be an incredible game, and it's obviously in the Gaelic Crowns for anyone that might have missed that. A 1:45. Even though it's Limerick's home venue, Matt, it does make a lot of sense considering a lot of the big clubs in Clare are closer to Gaelic Crowns than their counterparts in Limerick. Logistically, it's the best place for Clare fans to come. It's going to be 50-50 in terms of tickets given out and attendance there. So while it is an away game, Clare should hold no problems coming to the Gaelic Crowns because they beat Limerick there 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I think the Gaelic Crowns is a very sensible option.
I think it is a sensible option. Right, all right. Thurles was and Cork were the other options. I think Clare's first choice was probably Thurles, and Limerick had nominated Cork. Cork is a fantastic stadium, Jack. Absolutely fantastic. But you'd have to sympathise with people from Clare, from West Clare and North Clare, making the long trip down to Leaside, and then the logistics of getting into the ground and the lack of parking and all that sort of thing. So you could see why Clare weren't going to buy into going to Cork. And I don't know, I'm obviously not privy to what the negotiations were, but and there was obviously negotiations, but you would have to say that Limerick's representatives and negotiators came out on the right side of the bargain. I think they pulled off a big one.
It is, but I think it's fair. I don't think Clare fans mind coming to the Gaelic Crowns. Like we had thought it was going to be Clare and Tip, and the Gaelic Crowns was the obvious choice for that. So I mean, the Clare fans could have wanted to go to Limerick anyway. So look, it won't make any odds.
The converse side of it, Jack, is that Clare are desperate for a Munster Championship. They're the county that's waiting the longest. They haven't won a Munster Championship since 1998. It's 25 years. This is the silver jubilee of their last Munster Championship, and they want to rest that run.
Yeah,
and a lot of Clare supporters would go to the moon if it enhanced their chances of doing that, I think. But look, at the end of the day, the Gaelic Grounds is a logical, it's a logical outcome. And as players, I don't think the Clare players will fear too much coming into the Gaelic Grounds. As I think, was it Anthony Daly was on this morning saying like that some of the Clare players and supporters are nearer to the Gaelic Grounds than they are to Cusack Park.
Yeah,
which is a fact.
I think it makes sense for a lot of reasons, and even the league game of a Saturday night and the championship game that Saturday night, the Clare crowd were very good. In fairness, they were very loud, very vocal, thousands of them there. So I don't think it'll feel like a home game for Limerick in any regards. But it narrates itself. The talking points coming into the game. Limerick looking for 5 in a row. They started the potential 5 in a row in the Gaelic Crowns. They'll be looking to end it there. And as you mentioned, Clare looking to end a 25-year wait for a Munster Championship. And it has become the biggest rivalry in the country in terms of hurling. Obviously, the year Limerick won All-Ireland in 18, it was Clare. They got the win when they played in Ennis. Limerick replied with a couple of big wins, and then Clare ended the streak, and they drew twice last year. One of the best Munster finals we've ever had. So if we get a game like last year, Matt, it doesn't matter where it's played, as long as it's Declan Hannon lifting the Mick Mackey Cup at the end of it. I think it's fair to say.
Somebody posted on my Facebook page in a reply this week that he could see nothing more appropriate than Limerick being presented with the Mackey Cup in the Mackey stand.
No, it writes itself. But look, there'll be a lot of said, there'll be a lot of written in the meantime. We'll be back next week to preview the game in full. So look, it promised to be an incredible occasion, but you just have to say a huge well done to this Limerick team that continue to give and give and give, and the heat even standing in the terrace on Sunday. So I couldn't imagine what it was like to play that intensity with a helmet on for that long, against a really good Cork team. They're just never lack of a want or for trying, and the skill levels, and to the Limerick people as well, that they really showed up and supported in numbers, and Cork played their part as well. Just a great day to be from Limerick.
Absolutely, and we have had so many great days to be from Limerick. It's great to be from Limerick anyway, but we have so many great days to be from Limerick over the last 5 years. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and long may they continue. And next stop, the Gaelic Grounds on the 11th of June for another Munster final. We're getting spoiled, Matt, but look, we'll take them.
We're getting spoiled, but I really thoroughly enjoyed the sport this weekend, because we had Munster winning on Saturday, and we had Limerick winning on Sunday, and across the water, Jack, against all the odds, my old football club Everton survived. I had to get the dig in.
Carbon copy of last year, the great escape. For
not quite, Jack. We escaped in the second last day last year, the last day this year, but I'd be worried about next year. But look, let next season look after itself.
Yeah, look, you've the hurling to occupy you for the summer, and we also have potentially a long run in the football to occupy ourselves as we gear up for the final round robin game of the THAT Cup. And we spoke about it in length last week. It's a dead rubber in a positive sense for Limerick. It's a free hit for Mark Fitzgerald. They got the job done in their first two games, beat Longford, beat Carlow. They earned this dead rubber against Wicklow this Sunday at 1 o'clock in Portlaoise. For Mark, do you think it'll be a chance to give fringe players some time? The likes of Ian Corbett and Robbie Burke come back from injury. You can bed them in, not worrying about the result. Killian Ryan, he said, was close to coming back. Really positive start has allowed Limerick to approach this game any way they want.
It does. It's a small bit of a conundrum maybe for Mark Fitzgerald. Does he try out the French players and see what they're made of, and or does he opt for a settled team going into the quarterfinals? And you must remember, Jack, that qualifying directly for the quarterfinals entitles you to a home venue for the quarterfinal, which is a very, very big plus. Now, you just wonder, Jack, because apparently early in the week, I don't know if you have that, but I have that very reliably, that Wicklow were averse to playing the game because there was nothing riding on it, which would be most disappointed and would certainly question the integrity of the competition if there was a walkover in it. But as of now, the game is going ahead, and that's the conundrum facing Mark Fitzgerald. I think he'd probably opt, obviously, to give extra game time, perhaps to Ian Corbett and Robbie Burke, but I think he will probably stick with his settled team. They're getting a bit of momentum. The momentum started in the game with Clare. It continued with Longford. it continued more emphatically again against Carlow, and I don't think he'll want to disrupt it too much. At this stage, you must remember he came in mid-season. He came in towards the latter part of the league. And it wasn't as if he didn't know his players, because he was part of Ray Dempsey's backroom team through the McGrath Cup and through the early stages of the league. So he knows what his players are. I think he will opt for continuity.
Yeah, I think it's important to continue with the win and run as you approach the quarter final. And another thing that the win in the first two games does is it gives you an extra week break, because if Limerick were to face the preliminary quarter final, it will be next weekend. Then they'll be playing a quarter final the following weekend, and the semi final will be the weekend after that. So the really good start has allowed them to approach these games as they want to. But on that, if Wicklow were to not play the game or to give a walkover, I mean, it would ruin the integrity of the competition that was such a bright spark in the J calendar last year. We all saw the scenes in Mullingar after Westmeath won, but even for the likes of the Waterford hurlers at the weekend, there was nothing riding on the game for them. As it turned out, it could have been very detrimental for Tip had Limerick and Cork drawn, but Tipperary could have thrown in the towel, and that would have meant Limerick didn't get to Munster final. So it is important that the game is played first and foremost.
But yeah, but it looks that doubt seems to be gone now, and the game is going ahead at 1:00 on Sunday in Portlaoise. And as I said, I think that Mark Fitzgerald will probably opt for continuity, because whoever Limerick will face in the quarter final in the Gaelic grounds, going to be a huge game. It's going to be a huge occasion, Jack, because the prize is not only a place in the last four in the semi-final, which I suppose we expected here at the start. If we're honest, I think we mentioned it at the outset of the Talton Cup that we should be in the mix at that stage. But it will also Limerick the Right have an appearance in Croke Park, because the semi-finals are scheduled for Croke Park. So as I said, I think he'll opt for continuity, more of the same. All right, in Corbett has to come back. Robbie Burke has to get more game time. Hugh Burke probably needs a full game. So all those factors will feed into the manager's mind. But I expect Limerick to win and make it 3 wins from 3 in the Talton Cup, because you don't know what sort of mindset that is in Wicklow at the moment. Like I think for Wicklow, the Talton Cup campaign has been a disappointment, Jack.
Oh,
because they did win. They did win promotion from Division 4.
Yeah, so they would have been seen as a dark horse to come into it, and were they the second seed in Limerick's group? So there was obviously a lot thought of them coming into the game. So for Oisin McConville, it has been very disappointing. But look, there's little they can do about that now.
They had a big win over Carlow in the championship, and they were leading Carlow by 5 points coming down the home straight in the Talton Cup, and conceded 6 unanswered points. So I just wonder, was it the mindset coming into the game, which I think is unlikely. It was to be hit with a thunderbolt like that, probably totally derailed their Talton Cup ambitions, because they suffered a very heavy defeat to Longford in the subsequent game in Longford. So
these things can turn quickly, both positively and negatively, and that's how it seems to have gone for Wicklow. But from a Limerick point of view, you'd be looking just to keep going with that win momentum and carry that into the quarterfinal. But as we said, Sunday's result is irrelevant, but another performance would add to the confidence. Whereas you don't want to be coming in off the back of a loss, even though you don't have to win. But the best of luck to Mark Fitz and his side this Sunday in Portlaoise at 1:00. Last weekend it was defeat for the Limerick ladies footballers in the Munster B final. Lost out 1-6-13 against Clare. But as they prepare for the junior championship, really good run out for Graham Shine and his side against a good Clare side.
Yes, I understand it's the Clare intermediate side.
Yeah.
A very, very good run out. A very, very good campaign in general for Limerick to get to the Munster final. They had a big win over the Kerry B side at one stage in the competition, and it augurs well going forward, Jack, because the Junior Championship is only around the corner. It's kicking off on the 18th of July, actually. Sorry, the 18th of June. And Limerick are grouped with Sligo, Down, and Kilkenny. Now, meeting Sligo and meeting Down will be relatively new to Limerick in recent years. We've played Kilkenny already this year in the opening round of the league. So, yeah, I think Graham Shine will be very, very happy with the preparations coming into the Junior Championship, because I suppose at the end of the day, the one thing that matters in any given year is how you perform in the championship. And I think the performance against Clare was very, very encouraging. It was the second time they met Clare in the competition, and they drew them in Innis, which was a very, very creditable performance. And then they lost 4 points last Sunday. But well done to the girls. It's ideal preparation going into the All-Ireland series.
Yeah, no, it's good preparation, good run out against an intermediate team, and as we said, they're starting their campaign on the June 18th in Kilkenny, and they were heavy victors in the league against the Cats, so they'll be hoping to continue in that vein. Moving on to Camogie, Matt, and it's a busy weekend, and it was a busy weekend with the seniors, I suppose, first and foremost, kicking off their campaign. They have a trip to Antrim this Saturday. They play in Dunloy at 3:00 in the Senior Camogie Championship, and it's been an up and down year so far for the Camogie side, but they'll take encouragement by how they concluded the campaign, staving off relegation, and they can really build with a group that is very feasible of getting out of in the championship.
Very, very possible, Jack, that they'll get out of it, and of course. However this contrived to happen, like it's the second year in a row going.
Second year in a row going to Antrim is what Matt was going to say there. But yeah, Limerick versus Antrim this Sunday in this Saturday in Dunloy at 3:00. The juniors last week got their campaign off to a brilliant start. They beat Offaly 5-11 to 1-5 to kickstart their campaign. Matt has come back in. You fell out there for a second, Matt. I was just filling in there that the juniors won, but you were about to say they're on their way to Antrim again, is it?
Yeah, like in the championship last year, they beat Antrim 114 to 111 in Corrigan Park, and that was the one that sealed their place in the quarter. In the quarter final, but that aside, just looking at Limerick's campaign in the league, it was very, very disappointing. And again, as we spoke very often about the men's footballers, the scheduling wasn't very, very kind to them. Like we spoke about Limerick having to go to Derry and then face Dublin. In the Camogie League, Limerick had to go to Wexford in the opening round and had to face Waterford. Travelled to Waterford again, I think, in round 3. So, but Antrim have been down to McNeville Park in the league and had a good win there. Which heightens it now. Limerick put down a few key players on that particular day, but I saw the Limerick game against Offaly, and I was impressed with the way they performed, because their backs were to the wall. It was a relegation shootout, Jack. The losers went down. Offaly went down as a result of it, and I subsequently saw him in the Munster semi-final against Clare, and Limerick were level after about 40 minutes, but failed to score after that, and Clare won by 5 or 6 points. But I thought the performance against them, even though John Lillis after the game expressed his disappointment with it, I thought it still marked a team going somewhere in the right direction. Now, Antrim recently lost the Ulster final to Down. So in the context of the group, Jack, which also contains Offaly and Waterford, it's a huge game. The two likely winnable games are Antrim and Offaly, and were you to succeed in both of those, you'd be through to at least the quarter-final.
It was a good weekend for the juniors, Matt, who kicked off their championship campaign with a big win against Offaly. And it's something that you had kind of predicted with the return of some of the younger players to the setup, and it really sets out their stall early on.
It did. And there was about 5 or 6 of the minor team called up, and they vindicated their call-up because Laura Southern and Ellen Meehan were among the goals. But it was a comfortable win for Limerick over an Offaly side that they also had a comfortable win over in the league. But it sets Limerick up nicely now to get into the knockout stages, because they're in a group with Armagh and Mayo. Now, Armagh were All-Ireland runners-up last year and would probably be the favourites to top the group. And they had a huge win over Mayo in the Mayo venue last Saturday. So Limerick will travel on Saturday week. Now they will travel to face Armagh, and that will give us Limerick will be able to benchmark as to where they actually are. But they certainly had the influx of that young blood from the minor team that were beaten in the All-Ireland final certainly made a difference, and they made an impact. And like David Deedy has done a great job in assembling. He's assembling a decent squad, and you know, they're going to be nobody's pushover. So it will be very, very interesting to see how they will fare with Armagh. And of course, it will be equally interesting to see how Mayo fare with Offaly. So on Saturday week, we will have a clearer picture of the relative strengths of the team. But as of now, that win over Offaly has put Limerick in a strong position to qualify for the knockout stages. And you know, the game against Armagh would probably be defining, as Armagh have been hovering around winning this competition for the last couple of years, beaten finalists last year. So that's going to be a tough game, and we'll be probably looking at it in more detail next week. But you know, for now, good start, win over Offaly. You know, happy days. Let's move on.
Yeah, great start, and you'll be hoping that John Lillis' side, senior side, can do the same this weekend in Antrim. Briefly onto the Masters, Matt, beaten by Kerry in Killeedy the weekend, 2-7, 3-9, I think it was. You were there. I suppose, you know, this competition is all about these lads representing their county and getting out and supporting them. I'd imagine it was a good day, and you got to see some heroes from Limerick and Kerry teams of past.
Yeah, I was. It was a most enjoyable game, Jack, and you know, any home games, I would encourage people just to go along and see them, because Limerick basically had a squad of 33 or 4, and they were all used at different stages in the game. And now it was a sweltering day in Killeedy, and beautiful conditions, as always in Killeedy, and the hospitality in Killeedy was as good as ever. You know, but it was a very, very enjoyable game, I would have to say. And all right, like Limerick were facing the masters of football, but my God, Jack, did they give him one hell of a fright? Limerick were leading with 10 minutes to go, and Michael O'Donoghue had got Limerick's second goal, and Limerick's first goal, which was actually the very last action of the first half, and it dragged Limerick right back into it because they had fallen 5 or 6 points behind. But it was a beautiful ball that was lofted in from the left-hand sideline by Micheál Reedy, and John O'Connell rose inside in a crowded square, and by God did he punch it! Nearly punched the ball right through the net. He hit it with such power. It was just lovely to watch. A fine goal. Now, both of Limerick goals were very good, but sort of in the closing stages, Kerry put on a spurt, and they got a couple of late goals to rescue it. But full credit to Limerick. They've only been together 5 months, Jack, but by God, have they assembled a decent squad. And Jack, the camaraderie between them, you know, it was infectious. Not just among the Limerick squad, but between the respective squads after the game. You know, this is prolonging people's inter-county careers, and like, you know, in many ways, Jack, the game was a good ad for Gaelic football. Such was the quality of the football on offer, and fair play to both sides. And of course, Limerick included 𝘕𝘰𝘬𝘪𝘰𝘯𝘴, who lined out at fullback and is no mean exponent of the big ball. Let's say, Jack. We have him there in our clip, in our introductory clip, and we saw what he could do with the sliotar. By God, he's not bad at the big ball either, I'll tell you. But most enjoyable, and I think the next home game is on Saturday week in 𝘕𝘰𝘬𝘪𝘰𝘠, and if it is, I am pretty sure it is, that as many people as possible should get out and see it. It's a very, 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 very enjoyable event. I really thoroughly enjoyed it, Jack.
Yeah, great initiative, and I'd imagine it'll become a staple of the Limerick GA calendar. I know this team is in their first year, but you'd imagine it'll be kept going, and long may it should. But before we finish, Matt, obviously need to offer our condolences to a couple of families. Firstly to Eamon Phelan on the passing of his father. Eamon is the PRO for Limerick and has done so much for Limerick over the years. Just got word of that there this morning.
Yeah, I would like to agree with you, and I would like to pass our deepest sympathy to Eamon and the Phelan family. I have known over a number of years how close that Eamon was to his dad, right up to the end, even in his final illness, and he will certainly sadly miss him. And I met him on a number of occasions with Eamon at matches, and you know, we all know the contribution that Eamon has made to Limerick GA, and our thoughts and our prayers are with him at this difficult time for him and his family. I would also like to send our deepest sympathy to Conall Kelly and the Kelly family of 𝘕𝘰𝘪𝘰𝘯𝘴 on the sad passing of Conall's wife, Mary. They've had a very, very long association with the GA through Ment Catering and through catering for, and through Conall Kelly has been a very, very generous sponsor of Limerick teams over the years, and his premises there, so many GA clubs have raised so much funds in 𝘕𝘰𝘪𝘰𝘯𝘴, and of course the late Mary Kelly was the mother-in-law of Mike Houlihan and grandmother of Limerick, current Limerick player Micheál Houlihan. So our deepest sympathy to the Kelly family and the extended Kelly and the O'Brien family, who she was originally Mary O'Brien from Mitchelstown. And our sympathy also to the Cleary family of Anglesborough. Mickey Cleary, or Mickey Tip as he was known, was such a familiar face at all games that Galtee Gaels played. And it is so sad to learn of his passing, and his sons, Johnny and Packy, have played for so long with the Galtee Gaels and are now giving back. Johnny is the manager of the Galtee Gaels ladies football team that won the county last year, and our deepest sympathy, because he's been ill since Christmas, but he's a character that we will sorely miss on the sideline when the county championships and the ladies football championships and the various championships. He was a never present. He was as certain to be there as the Galtee Gaels goalkeeper when Galtee Gaels were playing. He was always there. So our deepest sympathy to the Cleary family.
Yeah, I'll echo those sentiments, Matt. Condolences to all the families affected there.
Indeed, Jack, to anybody that has been bereaved since our last podcast, and and any GA families or indeed anybody that has been bereaved. It's bereavement is very, very difficult to face at any time.
Yeah, well spoken there, Matt. Over an hour on the clock there. Look, it was a very eventful Sunday in the Gaelic grounds and further afield. But we have another Munster final to look forward to. As we said, John Kiley's side continue to deliver. Whenever there's questions asked of them, they go above and beyond. And overall, hurling has delivered so much this year, Matt. And if you were to pick out a game of the Munster Championship so far, what would you pluck for? Because obviously Limerick's last 3 games have been humdingers. You had Tip and Cork was incredible in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and also Clare and Cork and Cusack Park was an exceptionally good game. You know, what is the standout one for you?
Limerick and Cork.
Yeah, and I suppose in the pantheon of great Limerick and Cork games, you know, it has to be right up there. I still think 2018 with the extra time will be very hard bait, but this one, you know, was just another instant classic.
Absolutely. You know, pit Cork and Limerick these days into a game and you're virtually guaranteed of something special.
Yeah, and I think Limerick and Clare are going in that same vein. So we'll wait with bated breath for that Munster final just over 10 days away from now as Limerick and Clare do battle again in the 2 Gaelic rounds. But for this weekend, best luck to Mark Fitz and his side in the Tailteann Cup. They'll round out the round-robin campaign. Win, lose or draw, they'll be into quarter-final in a fortnight time. John Lillis and his Camogie side kick off their championship campaign in Antrim on Saturday. So they wish them the best luck as well. A huge thank you to Noel's Menswear, our sponsor, for getting on board and contributing. To all our listeners, very good viewership is up, continuing to rise week on week. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure to like, leave a comment, click the subscribe or the notifications, notification like that, and the bell. It just helps the algorithm. It helps spread the messages that we're sending out here for Limerick GA on Facebook. Like and share on Twitter, like and retweet. Every bit of it is really appreciated. As always, a huge thank you to you, Matt, and as always to the listeners. We have another couple of eventful weeks to look forward to, thank God. A huge thank you to Paul Browne as well for his immense contribution at the start of the podcast. That's it for episode 235. We'll be back very soon.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
Impression again we get out with what you put into. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴 sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Johnny Buckley. To do that to Tomás O'Shea. He deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word court today. No more about it. They made all the run, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the packed it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes 𝘕𝘰𝘦𝘭𝘴𝘰𝘠 leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for any